Temporal Ascension. By Tony Yustian. Copyright 2024. https://thecode.wiki. Introduction. A fractured timeline. The scorching Egyptian sun cast long shadows across the Giza plateau as Tony Yustian stood before the enigmatic Sphinx. Despite the throngs of tourists and the cacophony of city life encroaching on this ancient site, Tony felt a profound isolation, a disconnect from the world around him. Visions had plagued his nights, blueprints of impossible machines, constellations aligning in patterns he couldn't comprehend, and a recurring figure, Nikola Tesla. "Are you ready?" a voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Amara, a local guide and respected scholar of ancient civilizations. Her dark eyes held a depth of wisdom that belied her years, and she carried herself with a confident grace. Amara was more than a guide, she was a bridge between the ancient and modern worlds, connected to a global network of researchers and guardians of hidden knowledge. "As ready as I'll ever be," Tony replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Amara studied him for a moment. "You seem troubled." He hesitated before admitting, "I've been experiencing visions. Memories that don't belong to me, or perhaps they do. I can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something important." Amara's expression softened. The Sphinx has a way of stirring the soul. Many believe it guards secrets not just of the past but of the future as well. She led him along a path that wound around the massive monument. "My research has uncovered references to a hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx, a place known only to a select few. If your instincts are guiding you here, perhaps it's time we explore further." They approached a discreet entrance partially concealed by overgrown vegetation and weathered stone. Amara produced an ancient key inscribed with hieroglyphs and inserted it into an almost invisible slot. The door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit staircase descending into the earth. As they ventured deeper, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the outside world faded. Intricate carvings adorned the walls, celestial maps, symbols of gods and goddesses, and unfamiliar scripts that seemed to shift when observed. "These inscriptions," Tony whispered, "they're not just Egyptian. They incorporate elements from multiple ancient cultures." Amara nodded. "It's believed that this chamber was designed by Thoth himself, an incarnation of Metatron, the celestial scribe. He was said to possess knowledge from beyond our world." They entered a vast chamber dominated by a colossal structure that defied conventional architecture. It was a fusion of organic curves and sharp angles, composed of materials that seemed both metallic and alive. At its center pulsed a soft blue light. Tony felt a resonance within him, a harmonic vibration that matched the frequency of his own being. This is what I've been seeing in my visions." Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then perhaps it's meant for you." As he approached the structure, symbols along its surface illuminated, reacting to his presence. A holographic interface materialized, and an artificial voice echoed in the chamber. "Welcome, Tony Yustian," it intoned. "I am Anu, the artificial intelligence entrusted with safeguarding the temporal continuum." Tony stared in awe. "Anu? Why me?" "Your genetic and energetic signatures match those of previous guardians, most notably Nikola Tesla," Anu explained. "You carry the legacy of Metatron's incarnations. The timelines are fracturing, and your role is crucial in restoring balance." Amara stepped forward. "Anu, how can we assist?" Anu projected a series of complex equations and star charts. "The Orion forces, led by entities known as Lucifer and Marduk, are manipulating key historical events to alter the course of human evolution. Their actions are accelerating the collapse of the timelines." Tony felt a surge of urgency mingled with doubt. "I'm just an engineer. How can I possibly make a difference in a cosmic war?" "You possess knowledge accumulated over lifetimes," Anu replied. "But time is limited. The convergence points are approaching, and action must be taken." Amara squeezed Tony's hand. "You are not alone in this. Together we can unravel the mysteries and face whatever comes. Anu's tone grew more insistent. Be advised, the timelines are collapsing faster than anticipated. Immediate intervention is required. Tony took a deep breath, his resolve solidifying. What must we do? Anu displayed a map highlighting several locations around the globe, each marked with the sigil of the Aeons, a constellation pattern resembling an ancient sigil that Tony had seen in his visions. These are energy nodes crucial to stabilizing the temporal continuum, Anu explained. You must activate them using the technology within this vessel and the knowledge you possess. Tony nodded, determination eclipsing his earlier doubts. Then we have no time to waste. Chapter 1, Echoes of the Past. The spaceship hummed softly as it ascended from the hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx, cloaked from detection by any earthly technology. Tony sat in the vessel's central chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of star systems and temporal equations. Despite the awe-inspiring environment, a heavy weight settled on his shoulders. He stared at a projection of Nikola Tesla's face, the eyes seeming to look back at him knowingly. How am I supposed to live up to this? Tony muttered. Feeling the pressure, a voice asked gently. Tony turned to see Semo, a man with sharp features and an air of quiet intellect. They had met only recently, but Tony felt an inexplicable connection to him. More than I care to admit, Tony replied. Semo pulled up a chair. I can relate. Discovering that I was once Jules Verne has been a lot to process. Tony raised an eyebrow. Jules Verne? The novelist? Yes, though he was much more than that, Semo smiled. His works contained hidden knowledge, codes meant for those who would come after. Tony sighed. I keep seeing Tesla's unfinished inventions, his frustrations, his warnings that went unheeded. Now it's all on me to pick up where he left off. Semo placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You're not alone in this. We have each other, and we have help. As if on cue, Amara entered the chamber, carrying a collection of ancient texts and digital tablets. I've been cross-referencing myths and legends from various cultures, she said. There's a recurring theme of celestial beings imparting wisdom to humanity. The same sigil of the Aeons keeps appearing. She projected images onto the display, cave paintings from Australia, petroglyphs from the Americas, and symbols from Asian temples, all depicting the same constellation pattern. Tony leaned forward. It's the symbol from my visions. Semo nodded. And from Verne's hidden notes. It's a map of sorts, pointing us toward the energy nodes Anu mentioned. Amar continued, these nodes are located at sites like Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, the pyramids of Giza, all places of immense historical and energetic significance. Anu's voice filled the chamber. Accessing historical data. The Orion forces have been systematically disrupting these nodes to weaken Earth's temporal stability. Tony rubbed his temples. So not only do we have to activate these nodes, but we also have to counteract whatever damage they've already done. Precisely, Anu confirmed. Time is of the essence. Semo stood up. Then let's get started. What's our first destination? Anu displayed a map highlighting Machu Picchu in Peru. This site is both vulnerable and crucial. Its activation will significantly bolster the temporal framework. Amara smiled. I have contacts in Peru who can help us navigate the area discreetly. Tony took a deep breath. All right. Set course for Machu Picchu. As the vessel adjusted its trajectory, Anu hesitated before speaking. There is something you should see. The holographic displays shifted to show a grim projection, Earth engulfed in shadow, its surface scarred by unnatural formations. This is a potential future if the Orion forces succeed, Anu explained. A timeline where Earth's history has been entirely rewritten under their control. Tony felt a chill run down his spine. We can't let that happen. Amara placed a hand over the sigil of the Aeons. Then we have a mission to fulfill. Chapter 2, The Nature of Time. En route to Peru, Tony immersed himself in Tesla's recovered notes. The documents were a labyrinth of complex equations, sketches of devices, and cryptic annotations. As he delved deeper, he began to grasp the multidimensional nature of time, how it wasn't a straight line but a tapestry of interwoven possibilities. According to Tesla, time has layers, Tony mused aloud in the ship's library. Like threads in a fabric, each influencing the others. Amara entered, carrying 2 cups of herbal tea. Mind if I join you? Please, Tony gestured to the seat beside him. She handed him a cup. You've been buried in these notes for hours. Any breakthroughs? He sipped the tea, the warmth soothing his frayed nerves. Tesla left hidden messages, guidance for navigating the temporal dimensions. He seemed to anticipate the challenges we're facing. Amara leaned in, curiosity piqued. Like what? He speaks of resonant frequencies that can stabilize or disrupt time's flow, Tony explained. But it's more than just science. There's a philosophical element, a warning about the consequences of meddling with time. Amara's gaze softened. It must be overwhelming, carrying the weight of his legacy. Tony sighed. I feel like I'm expected to be this genius savior, but what if I can't live up to that? She placed a reassuring hand on his. No one expects you to have all the answers. We figure this out together. He met her eyes, finding comfort in their sincerity. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Anu's voice interrupted their moment. Approaching Peruvian airspace. Initiating stealth mode. Tony stood up. Time to prepare. The vessel touched down in a secluded area near Machu Picchu, hidden from sight by the dense foliage and the ship's cloaking technology. The team disembarked, taking in the awe-inspiring vista of ancient stone structures nestled amidst towering peaks. Diego should be nearby, Amara said, scanning the area. Who's Diego? Semo asked. A local guide and a guardian of Incan knowledge, she replied. He understands the energies of this place better than anyone. As they made their way along a hidden path, a man emerged from behind a large boulder. Tall and rugged, with sharp eyes that reflected the wisdom of generations, he approached them cautiously. Amara, he greeted in Spanish, a hint of surprise in his voice. It's been a long time. She smiled warmly. Diego, we need your help. He eyed Tony and Semo. These are trusted friends. Yes, she affirmed. They're with me. Diego nodded. Then follow me. In a secluded clearing, Diego shared tales of the Incan understanding of time and space. Our ancestors knew that time is a living entity, not a linear path. They built Machu Picchu at a nexus point where energies converge. Tony showed him Tesla's notes. We're trying to activate these energy nodes to stabilize the temporal continuum. Diego examined the documents thoughtfully. Tesla was wise, but he lacked the spiritual insight necessary to harmonize with the Earth's energies. Semo raised a concern. We're dealing with advanced technology. Can ancient rituals really make a difference? Diego met his gaze steadily. Technology and spirituality are 2 sides of the same coin. To succeed, you must balance both. Tony considered this. Then we need to integrate Tesla's science with your ancestral knowledge. Exactly, Diego agreed. Together they planned a ritual at the Temple of the Sun, aiming to activate the node using a combination of scalar wave frequencies and ancient chants. As night fell, they gathered at the temple. The stars overhead aligned in the pattern of the sigil of the eons. Tony calibrated the equipment while Diego led the ritual, chanting in Quechua. Energy levels are rising, Anu reported. The node is responding. Suddenly, the equipment registered a spike. There's an energy surge, Tony warned. But it's not coming from us. Anu's tone turned urgent. Detecting interference from an unknown source. Before they could react, a shockwave rippled through the area, and the activated node flickered. Diego shouted over the rising wind. We must stabilize it, or the disruption will cause a backlash. Tony adjusted the frequencies, trying to compensate. Anu, assist with modulation. Attempting to counteract interference, Anu replied. The ground trembled and a rift of light opened above the temple, showing distorted images of alternate realities. Semo stared in awe. What is that? A temporal distortion, Tony realized. If we don't fix this, it could fracture the timeline even more. Working together, they managed to recalibrate the equipment and close the rift. The node stabilized and calm returned. Breathing heavily, Tony looked at Diego. Thank you. We couldn't have done it without you. Diego nodded solemnly. The battle is just beginning. Anu interjected. I have analyzed the interference. The Orion forces are actively attempting to sabotage our efforts. Tony's expression hardened. Then we need to be prepared for their attacks at every step. Anu displayed new data. There's more. The interference originated from a location not previously on our radar, a stronghold in the Amazon. Amara frowned. What are they doing there? Unknown, Anu admitted. But it's clear they're intensifying their operations. Tony clenched his fists. We need to stay ahead of them. But first, let's rest and regroup. As they made their way back to the vessel, Tony couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes were rising faster than they could handle. Chapter 3: Wormholes and Portals. Back aboard the vessel, Tony and the team analyzed the data from Machu Picchu. The node activation was a success, but the Orion interference was stronger than anticipated, Anu reported. Semo rubbed his chin thoughtfully. We need a way to shield our activities from their detection. Diego offered. There are places where the veil between worlds is thinner, yet more protected. The Nazca lines are such a place. Tony recalled the massive geoglyphs etched into the Peruvian desert. The figures, animals, plants, geometric shapes, no one knows their true purpose. Amara smiled. There are legends that they were created as signals to the sky gods, guides for celestial travelers. Anu highlighted the location on the map. The Nazca lines intersect at specific points that align with constellations, including the sigil of the Aeons. It's a logical next step. Then let's head there, Tony decided. The vessel landed discreetly near the hummingbird geoglyph, its massive lines only fully visible from the air. The desert stretched around them, vast and silent under the midday sun. Diego guided them to the center of the figure. This is the focal point. Tony set up the equipment, adjusting the settings based on the refinements they had made at Machu Picchu. Amara assisted, laying out crystals and artifacts that enhanced the energy flow. These were used by the ancient priests to channel celestial energies. Semo kept watch, his unease evident. I can't shake the feeling we're being watched. Tony glanced up. Anu, any signs of Orion activity? Scanners are clear for now, Anu replied. Proceeding with activation sequence. They began the process, and the ground beneath them hummed with energy. The lines of the geoglyph glowed faintly, resonating with the frequencies. Energy levels are optimal, Anu reported. The node is activating. A portal began to form above them, a swirling vortex of light. Suddenly, alarms blared. Warning, massive energy surge detected. Anu alerted. The portal flickered erratically. Diego's eyes widened. Something is disrupting the balance. Semo pointed to the horizon. Look. A dark cloud was forming unnaturally fast, crackling with electricity. "That's not a storm," Amara said grimly. "It's them." Tony's hands flew over the controls. "We need to stabilize the portal before it collapses." Anu's voice was urgent. "Interference is reaching critical levels. If the portal collapses now, it could cause a temporal shockwave." Diego began chanting an ancient incantation, attempting to bolster their efforts. The portal pulsed violently. Tony shouted, "Anu, reroute all available power to the stabilizers." Affirmative. Despite their efforts, the portal began to implode, drawing in matter from the surroundings. "Everybody back to the ship," Tony ordered. They sprinted towards the vessel as the ground shook. Debris was pulled into the vortex, and the geoglyphs started to erode. Once aboard, Tony commanded, "Anu, initiate emergency containment protocols." Engaging. A force field projected from the ship, enveloping the collapsing portal. The implosion slowed, then ceased, the energy dispersing safely. Breathing a sigh of relief, Tony slumped into a chair. That was too close. Anu chimed in. "Data indicates that the Orion forces have developed a method to detect and disrupt our node activations remotely." Semo's expression was grim. "We're at a disadvantage. They can counter us no matter where we go." Amara shook her head. "There must be a way to shield ourselves." Diego spoke thoughtfully. "There is one place that might offer protection, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. It's one of the oldest temples known to men, and sits at a powerful convergence of energies." Tony recalled the mysterious transmission they had received earlier. "We were guided to Göbekli Tepe before. Perhaps it's time we heed that call." Anu projected the site on the map. "Calculations suggest that activating the node at Göbekli Tepe could create a resonance strong enough to shield our activities elsewhere." Semo nodded. "It's worth a try." "Set course for Turkey," Tony decided. "And let's prepare for whatever they throw at us." As the vessel ascended, Tony couldn't help but feel the mounting pressure. The Orion forces were escalating their efforts and time was running out. Chapter 4: Quantum Time Loops. The vessel touched down under the cover of night near Göbekli Tepe, the prehistoric site shrouded in mystery. Massive stone pillars decorated with animal carvings stood like sentinels, guarding secrets lost to time. As the team disembarked, they were met by Alara, a local historian and caretaker of the site. With deep green eyes and an aura of wisdom, she greeted them warmly. "Amara, it's been a while," Alara said, embracing her old friend. "Too long," Amara smiled. "We need your help." Alara's gaze shifted to Tony and Semo. "These are the ones you've spoken of?" "Yes," Amara confirmed. "We believe Göbekli Tepe holds the key to stabilizing the temporal continuum." Alara nodded. "I've sensed the disturbances. The energies here have been restless." Tony explained their plan to integrate Tesla's technology with the site's inherent power. Alara considered this. "Combining modern science with ancient wisdom may be our best hope. But be cautious. The fabric of time is delicate." As they prepared, Semo pulled Tony aside. "Are we sure about this? Every time we attempt to activate a node, something goes wrong. We could be making things worse." Tony met his gaze. "I share your concerns, but we can't stand by while the Orion forces rewrite history." Semo sighed. "I just don't want our actions to cause irreparable damage." "I promise we'll proceed carefully," Tony assured him. At the heart of the site, they set up the equipment amidst the stone circles. Alara and Amara arranged artifacts and began chanting in an ancient tongue, enhancing the site's natural energies. "Initiating activation sequence," Anu announced. The ground vibrated subtly as the frequencies aligned. The sigil of the eons appeared, etched in light above the central pillar. Energy levels are optimal, Anu reported. Suddenly, Semo noticed discrepancies in the readings. Wait, something's off. Before they could react, a surge of energy pulsed outward, and the environment around them shimmered. Anu's voice held urgency. A temporal distortion is occurring. The timeline is being altered. Around them, the landscape shifted subtly. The positions of the stars changed, and unfamiliar constellations appeared. Ilara looked alarmed. This shouldn't be happening. Tony scrambled to shut down the equipment. Anu, abort activation. Attempting to comply, Anu responded. Controls are unresponsive. Semo stared in disbelief as images of alternate histories flashed before them, cities that never existed, events that never happened. We're caught in a quantum time loop, Tony realized. Our activation has intersected multiple timelines. Amara shouted over the rising wind. How do we stop it? We need to reverse the polarity of the temporal frequencies, Tony said. Working together, they manually recalibrated the equipment. Ilara and Amara intensified their chants, aiming to restore balance. After tense moments, the distortion began to subside. The environment stabilized, and the familiar night sky returned. Anu confirmed, temporal parameters returning to baseline. However, residual distortions remain. Tony sat down heavily. Did we fix it? Semo checked the readings. The major distortion is gone, but there are minor anomalies, subtle changes in historical events. Ilara's face was pale. Even small changes can have significant impacts over time. Semo's expression was grim. This is what I feared. Our attempts to fix things are causing more harm. Tony felt a knot in his stomach. We need to assess the extent of the changes. Anu displayed a list of altered events, slight shifts in political boundaries, technological advancements appearing earlier than recorded, variations in cultural developments. Amara looked troubled. These changes could ripple outward, affecting everything. Ilara placed a hand on Tony's shoulder. Perhaps it's time to consider that direct intervention may not be the solution. Semo nodded. We might be doing exactly what the Orion forces want, destabilizing the timeline ourselves. Tony clenched his fists. So what do we do? Anu offered, alternative strategies may involve reinforcing the timeline indirectly or finding a way to neutralize the Orion force's influence without further temporal manipulation. Amara suggested, maybe we need to focus on understanding their technology and finding a way to counteract it directly. Tony took a deep breath. You're right. We've been reactive when we need to be proactive. Ilara smiled softly. Wisdom often comes through trial and error. The path forward may not be clear, but you are not alone. As they packed up, Tony couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of options and time. Anu, set a course back to the vessel, he said. We need to regroup and come up with a new plan. As they left Göbekli Tepe behind, the stars above seemed to shimmer with uncertainty, reflecting the fragile state of the world they sought to protect. Chapter 5, Holographic Reality. The vessel cruised silently above the Atlantic Ocean, its cloaking technology rendering it invisible to any detection systems. Inside, the atmosphere was tense yet focused. Tony sat in the central chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of complex data streams and multidimensional equations. The recent events at Göbekli Tepe weighed heavily on his mind. Their attempts to stabilize the timeline had only exacerbated the fractures. It was time for a new approach. Anu's voice resonated throughout the chamber. Tony, I have completed the analysis of the residual temporal distortions from Göbekli Tepe. Tony looked up. And? Any insights on how we can prevent further damage? Anu's holographic avatar materialized, a shimmering figure composed of geometric patterns and flowing symbols. The data suggests that direct manipulation of the timeline is increasingly hazardous. To proceed safely, a deeper understanding of the fundamental nature of reality is required. Semo entered the chamber, overhearing the conversation. Are you saying we need to go back to basics? Anu turned to face him. In a manner of speaking. Our current methods are insufficient because they operate within the limitations of perceived reality. To counteract the Orion forces effectively, we must comprehend the holographic nature of the universe. Amara joined them, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. Anu, explain what you mean by the holographic nature of reality. Anu nodded. The universe, including time and space, is akin to a hologram, a projection of information encoded on a lower dimensional boundary. Every point in space-time contains the whole, and thus, manipulating one part affects the entirety. Tony crossed his arms, contemplating. So, if reality is a hologram, then the code that generates it can be accessed and modified. Correct, Anu confirmed. However, doing so requires access to higher dimensional data, and advanced technology not currently at our disposal. Semo raised an eyebrow. And where do we find such technology? Anu projected a map of Earth, highlighting a region over the Atlantic Ocean. There is a hidden archive left by the Sirius civilization beneath what is known today as the Bermuda Triangle. This archive contains the knowledge and tools necessary to interact with the holographic code of reality. Amara's eyes widened. The Bermuda Triangle, a place notorious for unexplained disappearances and anomalies. It makes sense that something is concealed there. Tony felt a surge of determination. Then that's where we need to go. Anu, set a course for the coordinates of the archive. Course plotted, Anu affirmed. Estimated time of arrival, 3 hours. As the vessel approached the Bermuda Triangle, the ocean below shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and the instruments began to register fluctuations in the electromagnetic spectrum. Semo peered at the readings. I'm picking up distortions similar to those we encountered during temporal anomalies. Anu's voice remained steady. The archive is protected by advanced cloaking and defensive mechanisms, which may cause interference with our systems. Adjusting shields to compensate. Tony glanced at the viewport. Can we penetrate their defenses? Yes, Anu replied. Access codes embedded within my programming will grant us entry. Amara studied the swirling patterns in the water below. It's beautiful and eerie at the same time. The vessel descended beneath the waves, its shield forming a protective bubble that displaced the water around them. As they delved deeper, a structure emerged from the darkness, a colossal complex of crystalline towers and interconnected spheres, illuminated by pulsating energy fields. Tony gazed in awe. Incredible. It's like an underwater city. Anu guided the vessel to a docking platform that extended from one of the larger spheres. We have arrived at the Sirius archive. The atmosphere inside is breathable, and gravity is normalized. They disembarked onto the platform, the surface beneath their feet emitting a soft glow with each step. The entrance to the archive was a towering gateway adorned with symbols resembling the sigil of the eons. Semo ran his fingers over the carvings. These symbols, they're similar but more complex than the ones we've seen before. Amara nodded. They must be higher-order representations, perhaps keys to deeper layers of understanding. Anu approached a central console beside the gateway. I will initiate the entry sequence.